Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Broken Past. It's been a while, but I want to go back and revisit a video that I did about 4 years ago where I had not one, but two of these atomic purple Game Boy Colors. And if you recall back in the video, both of these were broken. I managed to get one of them working, I believe just by cleaning some of the contacts and so forth with it, but the other one was incredibly corroded. You can see back in this video how when I opened it up, the entire motherboard was corroded. You can still see some corrosion on the back of the screen. And this is the board. There's a ton of corrosion that was up here. There was some down here. Even the battery terminals, I remember they were pretty corroded. We can still see a little bit of rust left on there. But after a bunch of back and forth, I was not able to get this working. And I put this on the shelf, left it to be, and that was it. A couple times since then, I took it back out, played with it a little bit to see if I could get it working. Never had any luck. Now fast forward to recently, you can't see it, but just this way, out of frame, is a new bench power supply that I picked up. And then I figured I would go back and revisit this broken Game Boy Color and see if I could figure out exactly what was wrong and try to get it fixed. So let's move this out of the way. So the first thing I did was I hooked up the bench power supply directly to the terminals on the battery and turned the switch on. And I noticed there's no power draw on the power supply at all. So obviously there was a broken connection or broken circuit in the process somewhere. So what I ended up doing was I tried taking the negative of the bench power supply and just grounding it somewhere else on the board. And suddenly the Game Boy came to life. It booted right up. I got power on the LED. Everything worked great. I also did notice that the power switch was a little bit flaky. So I went ahead before making this video and I resoldered the power switch just to make sure that that wasn't going to be part of the problem. And I think this is now working much better than it was. It might not be perfect, but it should be much more consistent than it had been before. So what I noticed was after removing it from here and connecting it to here and having it work fine, I went back and followed the traces from the negative terminal to try to figure out exactly what was causing it not to work. And also, since then, I have picked up a microscope to test out with as well. So let's turn this on and see if I can record and add this video. So what I did was I followed the negative terminal and followed the trace all the way down here to pin 3 of this power connector. And you can see a jumper wire on here now, but from pin 3 to pin 2, there was not continuity. There was continuity from pin 3 to the negative terminal, but not to pin 2. And if I flip it over, we can see here that this is the DC power jack. And sorry, it's a little blurry here. But pin 2 and 3 should have continuity if there is not a plug in the power jack. The moment you plug something into the power jack, it severs pins 2 and pin 3 as a way to make sure that you don't provide voltage feedback to the batteries. But without anything plugged in, there should be continuity between these two pins. So what I did was I added a jumper wire just to test it out, turned everything on, and it booted right up. Worked exactly like a champ. So did some more looking, and I know it's going to be really kind of hard to see on the microscope, but there was a ton of corrosion down in this area. This whole side of the board had a lot of corrosion. Actually, the whole board in general had corrosion. But what I believe is that the connection between pin 3 and pin 2 has gotten corroded to the point that it doesn't make connection even when nothing's plugged into the DC jack. So the fix for this should be as simple as replacing that DC power jack with another new DC power jack. So I ordered a couple of these online from Handheld Legends. And I also ordered, as we can see from that board that's missing, that's really big, a replacement speaker. The one that was on there completely fell apart when I took it out of the case. Obviously we have to put new solder on here, fix these connections here, but also the connections on the back of the speaker itself had completely fallen apart. So at this point, what I want to do is simply replace this DC power jack. There we go. Replace the DC power jack and make sure it works. And if it does, we'll attach a speaker and we should be good to go. And this board should be back in operational again. So I think the first thing we want to do is go ahead and desolder this power jack and solder in a new power jack and see where that gets us. good. Everything looks, it's going to be blurry, but it looks like it's installed right. Let's go ahead and move the microscope out of the way for a second and put our multimeter on continuity. You're probably not going to see it very well from the camera since I moved the microscope, but I'm going to test continuity from the negative terminal to pin 3, which we do, and then we should also have continuity to pin 2 with the new connector, which we do. Good deal. So I think the last thing we can do, which we might as well do now, is go ahead and solder in that new speaker. There we go. I think we are all soldered up and ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this at least enough to test. All right, so it is actually the next day. I put this all together yesterday and went to test it out, and I realized the speaker wasn't working. As you can probably see, I have a whole bunch of different speakers set out over here. I tried the first one that I got in the mail, and it didn't work. I tried one off of a 2DS XL, and this one seemed to work. However, this speaker is actually slightly broken. It doesn't put out a lot of sound, so I couldn't use it. So I tried a whole bunch of different speakers, got it partially working, and figured I would wait and order some new ones of the speaker that I had originally bought. So they came in today, got a set of 5. And so I tried them out, and none of them worked. And after a lot of troubleshooting, I still don't entirely know what's going on. My thought is, and it's probably hard to see on here, my thought is probably that these soldering points with the speakers are not making a good connection, potentially due to the rust and corrosion and so forth that had been on this board before. So after a bunch of troubleshooting, I went ahead, and I know this is not the best solution in the long run, but I went ahead and just soldered it directly to the connection points on the headphone jack. You can maybe see, I should get out the microscope to show it, but it's really not that big a deal. I started scraping back some traces and doing some troubleshooting on seeing where the connections run and if I can figure out where it's breaking down. But I didn't have a whole lot of luck, and at this point, with the condition that this thing was in originally when I got it, I am okay with just getting it back together with the speaker and the wrong mounting points. Maybe down the road, I'll get one of the aftermarket audio amplifiers, which uses different connections, and hook it up that way. But I think with all the work I've already done at this point just to get it working, I think I'm going to leave it as it is and go ahead and just put it together and make sure it all works the way it's set up now and call it good. So with that, let's go ahead and put this back together. And there we go. So let's go ahead and pop in a couple of new batteries. And put in our game. And let's give it a shot. Let's get out of the glare here. So it looks like we are pretty close. The only problem, it's kind of hard to see here, but A works, B works, but up is not working. So down, see, it's really hard to see. Down and right work, but up and left do not. Start works, A and B work, but up and left do not work. So I guess let's take it back apart and take a look at that. So after taking this apart one last time, here is what I found. Go ahead and start the game. We can hear it starts. We have sound and we have input. But let me turn the volume down here. We don't have, so we can see here, we can go right, we can go down, press A, B, start, and select. But what we don't have is up or left on the D-pad. So after taking it apart and looking at the board, unfortunately I do not have a picture of it, but what I've discovered is that the traces going from the D-pad, the left and up pads on the D-pad, up to the vias to go to the other side of the board, those are completely corroded out. And unfortunately, the vias go through there to underneath the cartridge slot on the back side. So at this point, I don't think it's worth it to try to fix the rest of that for now. The biggest thing that I wanted to do at the very least is get this thing at least power on to confirm that the motherboard at least worked, partially anyway, and fix the speaker as well. So sort of a partial success on the revisit to this. I now have two mostly working atomic purple Game Boy Colors, one fully working, one mostly working. Obviously with the broken traces on this one, getting it fully working is going to be a lot more involved than I originally thought. So I think for now, I'm going to call this one good. If you guys have any tips or advice on what I could try to do to make the up and left on the D-pad work, either by jumping some connections through the vias or something like that, please leave a comment down below. I might revisit the revisit again down the road and see if I can get this the rest of the way working. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. So it is now another day. So I thought I was going to finish the video the way I left it, with it not fully working, but because it's me, I can't leave things alone. So I did some more looking around last night, and, well, see for yourself. See if I can show this. Turn the volume down here. So we can now see that we have down, right, but we also have left and up. So everything is now working. Obviously left and up, they're not perfect, but they do work again. So I saw a post on Reddit where somebody mapped out the vias where from the D-pad, where the traces go through the vias out the backside and back up the front, and where they end up on the board. So I took some really small 0.1 millimeter enameled wire. This stuff is crazy small, and ran jumpers from the traces. One of them was from a touch point on the D-pad up to where it ends up back on the front side of the motherboard. And for the up on the D-pad, the touch point was actually burned off or corroded off. So I had to scrape off and find a new spot, and then I ran a jumper wire up through and then to that connection as well. You can actually see a little bit of Captain tape that I went ahead and just put over it on the backside, and I will include a few pictures here as well to show you what I've done. But yeah, now it is fully working. I don't think I'm going to use this as a primary Game Boy Color. The up is pretty good. Left is a little bit sensitive. It's a little bit harder to push for that to work, but regardless, it all works. A works, B works, start and select work, and again, obviously the audio works based on the fix as well with the new DC jack here. So yeah. So now I think we can end the video. The system is fully working. I did a deep clean on the entire board, got rid of all the corrosion that was left on there. I cleaned the power switch, replaced the DC jack, had to replace the speaker, which is broken. Again, those had some bad traces too, so I just jumped those straight off of the audio port and had to run jumper wires for the D-pad up and left. And I think that was it. So all that combined, we now have a fully functional atomic purple Game Boy Color once again. So yeah, after 4 years or so, the two that arrived from eBay broken are now both working. So with that, I believe this is now the end of the video. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.